economic matters. President Trump informed me of what Putin told him. We believe that America's strength, together with us and all our partners, is enough to pressure Russia and Putin into peace.
Zelensky tried to put up a brave face after his call with President Donald Trump, but as I said, he seems to have been blindsided. Zelensky started the day talking about joining NATO, about becoming a match for Putin on the battlefield. But Donald Trump shot all of that down.
Should propose NATO membership for Ukraine?
I don't think it's practical to have it, personally.
If the war were to end, he says he wants guarantees of security.
We'll see what that means.
So effectively, it looks like the US is dealing with Russia directly now, and Ukraine will just have to accept whatever it is offered. Trump is planning to meet Putin in person multiple times apparently. Their first meeting will probably be in Saudi Arabia.
I think so. We think we're going to probably meet in Saudi Arabia, the first meeting. Hasn't been set, but not too distant future. We both understand, we know the Crown Prince, and I think it'd be a very good place to meet.
Now, Saudi Arabia is a largely neutral venue, unlike anywhere in Europe or China for that matter. So a Trump-Putin meeting in Saudi Arabia does make sense. Their meeting should take place soon. But the question is, will Zelensky get invited? Or will he just have to sign whatever is sent to him after the meeting? Overall, it seems that Trump may actually manage to end the war in Ukraine. Judging by his rhetoric, Zelensky will have to give up all his ambitions. He may have to cede land to Russia, drop his plans of joining NATO, and possibly even the European Union. And if that happens, it will mean that Putin gets everything that he wants with Trump's blessing. This week was very important for J.D. Vance. It was his big diplomatic debut, and I must say, Trump threw him into the deep end. First was the Global Summit on Artificial Intelligence. Vance had to spell out US AI policy. He also had to refuse signing on to the joint statement. His next assignment is in Munich, where he will attend a security conference. J.D. Vance will have to lay out Trump's approach to Europe, not to mention clarify his moves on Ukraine. These are tough missions for any politicians, but especially so for a novice like J.D. Vance. Trump literally picked him in the middle of his first ever term as senator. So he's virtually a beginner on foreign policy. So how did his debut go? Our next report tells you.
I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear.
I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear.
James David Vance. That's what the JD stands for, James David. Not everyone knows this, because Vance isn't exactly very famous. Not yet, anyway. The US Vice President is usually in the shadow of his Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump. But this week, Vance has been given a chance to step out of that shadow. Trump sent his VP to Europe, first to attend the AI Summit in Paris, and then on to Munich in Germany for the annual Munich Security Conference, which begins tomorrow. Vance has been given a difficult task. He has to represent the Trump administration in Europe, while the continent is wary of Trump's every move. Vance has to reassure America's European allies, but also make sure to push Trump's America First agenda. It's an unenviable task, a trial by fire. But let's see how the US VP has performed so far, starting with the Paris AI Summit.
The United States of America is the leader in AI, and our administration plans to keep it that way. And let me be emphatic about this point. America wants to partner with all of you. And we want to embark on the AI revolution before us with the spirit of openness and collaboration. Many of our most productive tech companies are forced to deal with the EU's Digital Services Act and the massive regulations it created about taking down content and policing so-called misinformation.
J.D. Vance effectively said it all with those 3 points. America will be first, it wants to work with Europe, but Europe has to follow America's rules. Vance's speech was combative. He rejected all the talk about safety and regulation, and eventually he didn't sign the final joint statement. But he left the door open for future collaborations on America's terms. All in all, he seems to have done what was expected of him. Outside the summit, he met a host of world leaders. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi was among them. PM Modi had a few gifts for Vance's children, gifts that could reaffirm their ties to India. Remember, the VP's wife, Usha Vance, is of Indian descent, so their children have ties to the subcontinent. Prime Minister Modi seems to have considered this while giving them gifts. Vance also attended some less friendly meetings with European leadership.
We're going to talk a lot about, I'm sure, some trade issues, some economic issues, and the Trump administration has been very clear that we care a lot about Europe. We see a lot of economic relationship to build upon with Europe, and we also want to make sure that we're actually engaged in a security partnership that's good for both Europe and the United States. So,
again, he basically said that the US is open to collaboration, but it will be America first. It's a tough line to walk. And it'll be even tougher tomorrow at the Munich Security Conference. Vance will have to explain Donald Trump's latest move, his call with Vladimir Putin about ending the war in Ukraine. Trump seems to have left Europe out in the cold. He didn't consult with them. So Vance will have to explain that as well, which means his trial by fire isn't over yet.
Now let's look at West Asia. Turmoil could return to the area any day. The Gaza ceasefire was looking increasingly fragile, with Hamas initially saying it would delay the release of Israeli hostages. This prompted threats from both the US and Israel, but even as this crisis is unfolding, a new concern has popped up. A new US intelligence report which says that Israel plans to launch an attack against its arch nemesis, Iran. The report says that Israel wants to hit Iranian nuclear facilities, two in particular, in Fordo and Natanz. Now, these sites are located to the south of Iran's capital, Tehran. They're in the middle of the country, but Israel sees an opening. Now, you may remember what happened last October. Israeli forces attacked Tehran's military facilities and Iran's air defenses. This was a tit-for-tat attack. After Iran fired missiles at Israel, Israel was initially considering a strike on Iran's nuclear facilities back then as well. But former US President Joe Biden rejected that idea, so Israel had to opt for something else. They had to hit conventional air defenses instead.